Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, boys and girls. We are going to do lab number 12. So let's start with the task that we need to perform. These are actually three tasks in total. Let's take a look at the topology that we have first before we start analyzing what we need to do. We have a VLAN 100 and a VLAN 200. We have two switches, Ether channel, Ethernet switches. We have a router and the cloud, the internet. That's what we have in this topology. We have two switches, a router, the internet, and two VLANs and two PCs there. Let's start doing the instructions that we need to complete for this task, different tasks. So refer to that topology. All physical cabling is in place. Configure local users accounts, modify the name ACL, NACL, and security. Task 1. Configure a local account on SW101 with telnet access only on virtual ports 0 through 4. Use the following information. Support for the username, max2 learn for the password, and then the exec mode privilege level. And that's the first task. The second task is to configure an extended ACL. In fact, it's an extended one because we are using VLAN 200 to configure this extended ACL. All right, so the name of the ACL is ENT underscore ACL. We need to restrict only PC2 on VLAN 200 from pinging PC1. Allowed only PC1 on VLAN 200 to telnet SSH to telnet the switch SW switch 101. Prevent all other devices from telnetting from VLAN 200 and allow all other network traffic from VLAN 200. We will take a look later how to do that. Then we need to do, remember that when we are working with extended is source and destination. So we will probably have to worry about how to configure that in a moment. And we have the last one. The last task is configure security on interface Ethernet 00 on switch 102. Set the maximum number of secure MAC address to 4. Drop packets with unknown source addresses until the number of secure MAC addresses drops below the configure maximum value. No notification action is required. Allow secure MAC addresses to be learned dynamically. So let's start working on these tasks. First thing we do is, now I'm wondering if we have to configure this in a single device because it doesn't really say where do we need to configure each of those exactly, but we will figure that out in a moment. So the first thing is configure the security. And as far as I see it is switch 101. We can double check that right here because we are configuring the security in the switch 101. So we are configuring pretty much the security and the ACL in the switch 101. The security for the port security and all that will be configured later on in the other switch 102. So please be informed about that. Let's start with the switch 101 so we can add some of the security configurations that we need. Let's go to that one. Now, I forgot to open the packet tracer, so let me open it and wait. In the meantime, while that one opens, let's continue analyzing this topology. So you can see the IP address that we have for the PC1 over here and the IP address that we have for PC2. We are working along with VLAN 100 and 200. And we need to configure the port security in fast Ethernet 010. That will be in this switch 102. We need to configure the passwords and the user's name and all that configuration for the telnet access in switch 1, and the ACL information has to be configured in the switch 101. So all of this first step in the switch 101, and the last part of the task, we need to configure that in switch 102. Please be informed about that and be careful when you are configuring these commands in the switches. So you configure the commands in the correct switch. So let's start doing our magic here. Switch 101. Let's start doing some changes there. First thing we do is we access the switch. We're going to configure enable config T, Ctrl+Shift+6 if you get this error. Config T is because the router doesn't understand what we are trying to do. We add this word together. It was a sticky there. It was a stoke all together, and it has to be a separate space. So the correct command will be config space T or configure space terminal. Now we have to do the username support. That's the name of the user. Let's just validate that. We are doing everything with the instructions of the packet tracer that we have revealed here. And we are doing the following. The password is need to be added there. So first we do the privilege 15 to have the correct access. Privilege 15 and then the password. Max to learn. Great. So right now we have to follow the next command that we need to enter is transport input telnet. Be careful to configure telnet, and I probably did something wrong here. Oh, look at that. I forgot the line BTY. So it's important. Line BTY 04. Be careful so you don't forget any of those commands. And now is going in the virtual ports 0 to 4. The next command is the transport input telnet. What is logging local? If I'm not mistaken, let's validate that. It's actually logging local. Now we have completed the first task. It was assigning the telnet access in switch 101. The second task is configure the ACL there. So we go to the same switch, config T. We have to do access list. If I'm not mistaken, the command is extended. Now, be careful so you don't forget that we need to start with IP. So let's go there and do it like that. Let me go ahead and do IP access list. Okay, now we do extended, and then the name of the access list is ENT underscore, and then ACL. Now, what else do we need there? We need to restrict traffic for PC2 and VLAN 200. We're going to work on that in a moment. In order to do that, we have to do the following. We need to do the following command. Do you guys remember that was the IP address for PC2? So we execute deny, all in lowercase, ICMP, and then the IP address is 192.168.200.10. Be careful that you type correctly all of these numbers. Now we have to do the host, 192.168.100.10. Are we missing something here? Are we doing something incorrect? Yes. We forgot to add the word host after the ICMP. Before the ICMP. So we have to do deny ICMP and then host. We forgot that. So let me correct that real quick. Now it's working fine. So the correct and complete command will be deny space ICMP space host, the IP address of the host that we are going to block the access from, and then host, and then the IP address of the host that we are stopping from accessing. In this case, we don't want PC2 to access PC1. So that's basically what we are doing. Now we have to do the following command, which is permit TCP host 192.168.200.10. host 192.168.100.1 and then equal telnet. With this, we are permitting access, TCP access to the switch, So access to the switch in the network of the PC1 will be allowed. Let's validate and double check that instruction. So only allow PC2 on VLAN 200 to telnet the switch one-on-one. That's what we're doing right now. The next command will be very similar. But in this case, what are we going to do? We're permitting the traffic. We're going to deny TCP. This specific network shouldn't access telnet for the rest of the network. So let's check the instruction. Prevent all other devices from telnetting VLAN 200. So let's run this command. Let's do deny TCP host 192.168.deny TCP. Okay, we don't have to do host. Deny TCP and the IP address 192.168.200.0, 0.0.0.255, any equal telnet. So deny TCP, then the network that we don't want to have access, that is the VLAN 200 network, and then the wildcard mask or of /24, which is actually 0.0.0.255, any equal telnet, any EQ, and then telnet. After that, we have to do a permit any, permit IP, any. What are we doing with this last command? We are allowing all other network traffic from VLAN 200 with the permit IP any. The next thing we have to do is apply the access list. So let's do an exit for now, interface VLAN 200, IP access group, ENT_ACL in. Okay, we are good now. We have successfully applied the extended ACL. We do an end and then we do a write. Make sure you move to switch 102 now, because the last part, we have to configure this in the switch 2. So let's go to switch 2. So we have the configuration there. Let's do an enable, config T, and we have to do interface FA010, switch port security, and enter. That's the first command to add security to the fast Ethernet 010, which is going from the switch 102 to the PC2. The second command that we are going to do is the one for the 4 MAC addresses, so maximum 4. So let's do the same command, but at the end we have to do maximum 4. We are adding port security to 4 MAC addresses only. The other command is violation protect. Why are we doing this? Because they are stating in the instructions, drop packets with unknown source address until the number of secure MAC address drops below the configured maximum value. In other words, this instruction refers to configure this command, the violation protect command. We have to do the same command than before, but now we raise the maximum, and instead of maximum, we have to do switch for port security violation protect. And finally, we have to do switch for port security and MAC address sticky. Why are we adding this command of MAC address sticky? Because of the last instruction. Allow secure MAC addresses to be learned dynamically. And that is the main reason because we are adding this last command. Once we do this, we do an end and then copy running config, startup config, or write. And we have to make sure that the changes that we were doing were saved successfully in both of the switches, switch 101 and switch 102. And you can see it there. In fact, we can actually check the access list with the command show access list. We can see some of the access list information that we configure in switch 101. And to see the port security configuration, let's see if there's a port security. Show port security, there it is. Show port security is showing the port security configuration as well that we configured there. If we want, we can do a show run as well to see if the port security information that we configure in FAST 0/10. So we're pretty much done with this lab. I think we have learned a lot. We have practiced, and that's the most important part of this event, to keep on practicing as much as possible. Boys and girls, it's been a pleasure. Take care, and remember to keep on practicing your labs. Goodbye.